Are you scared of immigrants? In a postmodern world, we are surrounded by the media, so the cultural meaning of the word immigrant is somewhat influenced by the media representations of them. Let's take a look at the discourse of some of this media. The headlines often feature emotive words like flood of immigrants invading our country. The paradigmatic choice to use words with these connotations, indexical of resources being overwhelmed and exhausted, creates a moral panic and blame around immigrants. But does it make any sense to blame immigrants for the problems with our culture and economy? Who else is to blame? Who is responsible for deciding who gets benefits? Who has the power to create employment? Who's responsible for austerity and cuts to resources? The government. This is displacement. So why do they carry the blame? It's deliberate.
And the Tories are desperate to distract us from the vicious assault that they're doing on all of us working class people with their austerity. And we know one of their favourite ways to distract us from their attacks is to shift the blame and to scapegoat migrants.
Woo! They're scapegoats. Tools of the bourgeoisie, used to distract from the capitalist system which exploits the proletariat. They shift the blame to other groups in society. This prevents revolt, as members of the proletariat blame each other instead of the real evil, the fundamentally exploitative capitalist system. You may be asking yourself, but how do we really know that immigrants are scapegoated in this way? Let's take a look at some of the discourse surrounding immigrants from the past. Here's some headlines from 1976 about Asian immigrants. The language of the headlines is the same as recent headlines we looked at earlier, using words like flood, invasion and influx to describe the Asian immigration. These are indexical of being overwhelmed and also being intruded upon. Let's compare a headline from 2014 to one from 1976. Both use the same discourse. However, a different group of people are being treated as the other. This shows how throughout the eras, the media has scapegoated different groups as responsible for society's problems. The cultural connotations of the word immigrant appear to stay the same, an exhaustion on resources and a threat to cultural values. However, the label is attached to different groups deemed the other at that time.
Better to say they cannot talk about their economy that is going bad. They cannot talk about the fact that they can do something to improve that. So they choose sometimes either in the past the Muslim, the black sometimes, and now is the time when they have chosen to scapegoat the Bulgarians and the Romanians.
Let's listen to some of Enoch Powell's 1968 speech coined Rivers of Blood.
In this country, in 15 or 20 years' time, the black man will have the whip hand over the white man.
Since the 1970s, discourse surrounding these groups has changed. Contemporary Britain generally has a discourse of multiculturalism, so how does the media still get away with its anti-immigrant, sometimes xenophobic discourse in 2014? Michel Foucault can explain this. He says our discourse is governed by what can and can't be acceptably said about a topic. Racism is seen as wholly unacceptable today. To treat someone as the other on the basis of their skin colour or their religion is both socially unacceptable and illegal. However, perhaps the reason that there is still much accepted xenophobic discourse around the recent Eastern European immigrants is due to the fact that they are white and predominantly Christian. They share these features with the white British population, and so Foucauldian discourse tells us it is more acceptable to refer to them as the other. The othering of Eastern European immigrants by the media makes them easier to scapegoat. This is due to ethnocentrism. If they are presented as holding different cultural values to us, our ethnocentric view means that we see our own values as superior. Instead of a discourse of white Western Christian immigrants, the media chooses Eastern uncivilized criminals. This creates a representation of them as the savage, uncivilized counterpart to our Western rationality. So maybe you're thinking, yeah, the media portrays this negative discourse of immigrants, but does anyone really listen? Yes. The right-wing anti-European party, the UK Independence Party, is gaining popularity. They went from 3% of the votes in 2010 general election to 11.5% in 2013 on the back of their policies against immigration. UKIP's increasing popularity has scared other parties into imitating the same policies and rhetoric around immigration.
UKIP is not a joke. UKIP is a racist party. We have to oppose them.
Don't believe what the media tells you. Immigrants are not the problem. They aren't the ones responsible for the way the country is run. Instead of blaming them for exhausting NHS resources, ask why the government is making huge NHS cuts. Without migrants, we wouldn't even have an NHS.
We should be building more council houses, creating more jobs, imposing a living wage, making bosses pay a living wage to all workers. Because we know the money's there, don't we? We know those at the top of society haven't had to suffer from austerity. It's a bit much, the millionaires in the cabinet across the way telling some of the most vulnerable and impoverished in Britain that they're to blame for the problems. Our problems are not caused by Romanians or anybody else, they're caused by the Etonians that are in the Tory cabinet.
Woo!
We must not fall for these divide and rule tactics. We must be united with the native workers and all migrant communities in this country under a common banner of common struggle against common issues. Because we know that it wasn't the workers or the poor people or the migrant communities who've caused the crisis here or any part of the world. It was the bankers, it was the posh boys, and it was the fat cats.
If we consider both the sending and receiving country as part of the same world, then, and on this every economist agrees, the overall effect of migration on the average standard of living of the world's people is positive. We're all the same. We should all have an equal opportunity to live a better life. Don't hate immigrants. Let's work together to create a better world.